Hello everyone, and welcome back to Why Did I Lose? The Prismata series in which I analyze viewer games and let you know why I think you lost. You'll recall when in the last episode, I mentioned I'd only gotten submissions from top players and was feeling a little bit of trepidation about being able to say why I think they lost. You'll be happy to know that in between when I recorded that episode and this one, like an hour ago, I got 2 more submissions. The first one was from MSven, so I should have no trouble figuring out why he lost, huh? He spends a lot of time at number 1 on the ladder as well. But we also did get a submission from someone who, a regular viewer who I believe is not as high up on the list. But we will not be covering either of those today. I have a backlog of these to get through. So first we're going to do Mr. Guy's submission, which I mentioned in the last video. So, yeah, this one. So he was player 1. I just wanted to double check. And playing against 307th. Okay, so let's go play this against MasterBot for some idea of, like, what I think a game might look like. Play. And as always, now is a good time if you want to pause the video and decide how you would have played. Welcome back. Alright, let's see. And this is a relatively recent game. Bloodphage costs 6, not 8. Nothing else of note to worry about. There's some pretty, like, cool, aggressive red stuff in, like, Phage, Vor, Immolite, and Husk is good support for that as well. As far as blue goes, I'm not very impressed. Omega Splitter seems pretty hard to get, and Pixie is the only support. There's just not much reason to do that. However, like, Cluster Bolts and Cryo Rays are going to be a real problem for a red player. Asteries, on the other hand, are going to be hard for the green player to get. And it's not clear, like, how breach-proof you can be if you can't do anything with your drones. And it's tough to get up to Asteries if the red player has been, like, rushing you down with Phage and Vor, right? Maybe you can fight them off with clusters and cryos, but if you do, I don't think you can get Asteries. So either way, it seems like Asteries are off limits unless your opponent tries to go for blue stuff, in which case, like, I don't know, sure, why not? Try Asteries. But if this were me, well, what I have to say about this game is I feel as though, like, if I were playing this just on the ladder or against MasterBot or whatever, I would go red. It seems perfectly playable, quite aggressive, hard to deal with, and Husk is good defensive support. But I would be worried about losing to Cluster Bolts and Cryos. And so I wonder if that's what happened. On the other hand, red also seems more easy for player 2 to get into. Well, so is green, right? I mean, player 1 has an okay red line, involving, like, a turn 3 Animus into double Phage or something, right? But I think that that's a bit slow if your opponent's going to try to kill you with clusters and cryos, and that's what I'm afraid of, right? So I think I would actually prefer to start with a turn 2 Animus here into, like, Phage Tarsier, probably, or maybe Phage Vor if the situation calls for it somehow. And I hope that way to put a little more pressure on the green player to stop them from hitting me so hard. And also, like, get myself down to a manageable amount of red more quickly. I don't know. Of course, you know, one of the reasons that all this red feels unmanageable is I started with Actually, you know what? He went green. Let's just hit him. He's not absorbing this. Why screw around with Tarsiers, right? Anyway, part of the reason that 2 red feels like way too much to spend is that we got a turn 2 Animus. Yeah, good cryo right opening Masterbot. Alright, so I do feel like we're in pretty good shape here. Because Masterbot is just like... You know, he's Masterbot, right? What can you do? Honestly, like, you could get a Rhino here to defend against his Rhino Click, but it's not actually... Like, the Rhino Click doesn't do anything, right? If he chooses to freeze both NGs and kill a drone, like, I don't know, kind of a bummer, I guess. In fact, like, let's get a Husk first. Because A, it protects the drone against both freeze, and B, it also... No. Yeah. I don't want to let opponent kill an... Oh. I don't want to let opponent kill an engineer because it turns off my Vor. But if I build the Husk, he can still kill an engineer. Whereas if I build an Engie, he just kills 1 engineer and there are still 2 alive. So one of the rare situations where engineer might actually be a better defender than Husk, even ignoring its cost, that feels very strange to me. Because normally, like... You have some number of engineers, and like, if you want to keep them alive, you can just build a Husk and lose that instead of an engineer. But in the specific situation where you need engineers, specifically, not other just generic soak, and opponent can freeze your other generic soak, it might be better to get an engineer than a Husk. Of course, you know, both would be nice, since then they don't threaten to kill a drone. But I have other things I'd rather spend my red on. If opponent wants to spend 2 Cryo Rays and a Rhino Click on killing a drone, like, I guess I'm sort of okay with that, I think. Can I really afford a Forge? It would be nice, wouldn't it? And there's, like, in the worst case, there's Pixies. So I can get access to a wall, and then I have Pixies. Sure. I predict Masterbot will breach for the drone. Kind of a bummer, but what can you do? Now a wall is not really that impressive, right? Opponent can just freeze it anyway. No. He can just hold the rhinos, is what I mean to say. So if I build a rhino, he can freeze the rhino, which is pretty good for him. But if I build the wall, he can just not attack. That's kind of funny. You can't do both. Okay, I guess this is fine. Let him freeze the rhino if he wants. Not that I'm happy about it, but, you know, that's life. And he's only threatening 2 attack plus 2 freeze, so... This wall seems fine, even though opponent now gets to actually hold stuff back. Do I want a husk? I guess so. So I think we're clearly winning this. It's going to take a little while, but Masterbot just doesn't have any attackers. And obviously, like, this is not reflective of Mr. Guy's game versus 307th. You wouldn't expect a line this awful from 307th. Masterbot has built an Immolite, but will be unable to attack with it next turn since he will have at most 2 attack. Hilarious. It would be real nice, if possible, to get a splitter here, I guess. Well, what if I just didn't, though? Blood Phage feels a little greedy. But it's really just like, how could it matter? Sure. I don't even need the NG. I'll have this Rhino plus enough granularity, I believe, so... Eh. Yeah, let's hold it. It's too bad Masterbot doesn't realize it's over. Yeah, okay. You're gonna get 4 more Cryo Rays, so you can threaten to freeze everything and attack for 1. What a joker. Pretty good Phage, honestly. I don't know, I guess we don't have to beat him into submission. I assume you viewers are convinced at this point that Masterbot is lost, right? Okay. So let's now watch Mr. Guy and 307th play this set out and see what happened. Oh! Turn 1! Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. I think it's too late at this point, right? Like, we're up like 3 drones or something, but way, way down in attack. Even accounting for the fact that the opponent is absorbing less. Interesting Immolite hold. Setting up for future exploits, basically. You pay half a damage by getting delaying the Immolite a turn. But in exchange, opponent has to lose 2 NGs instead of a wall, and then you have granularity set up later. Opponent has husks though, so it might not be worth all that much to attack his granularity. Right, like you attacked for 1 less next turn. And in exchange, you get an exploit for 1 this turn, but your Immolite's behind? Like, if your Immolite is taking longer to attack with? I'm not convinced that that's so great. Oh, you don't even get an exploit for 1. You would if you were attacking for 4, but why would you? Yeah. I'm not convinced that Immolite hold was so great when opponent has access to husks. Hey, let's go back. I just wanted to see how that play turned out. We held an Immolite because an NG died. Or not an Immolite, a Vor because an NG died. And then it became free to hold a Rhino as well. That makes sense. So we did end up eventually getting that exploit from hurting opponent's granularity, which is kind of cool. But opponent just still has way more attack, right? Like, we have about 4. And opponent has 1... Well... With the Rhinos timing out, opponent doesn't have that much more, but... They have a bunch of defensive tempo because the Rhinos are timing out, right? They can afford to use that to buy other attackers. Having to hold back that splitter hurts. Not much you can do about it, I think, but... I don't know. We're starting to come back in terms of like number of attackers. But given that we're holding the splitter and we're getting exploited every turn, it's not all that great. Okay, try to sync up, sure. Okay, we're probably turning off 2 attack. We're turning off at least 1 and 2 unless opponent chooses not to absorb. Which he does choose. Okay, so in exchange for breaching him exact, he's now breaching us exact, but getting some more drones out of the deal, I guess? I don't know. An opponent doesn't really have to defend at all next turn, which is nice. Maybe it's easier for him to take the gambit than for us to offer it. And this is like lights out, basically? Question mark. Opponent breaches for drones here or splitter? Drones. Right, and then next turn you breach for the Immolites, I guess. As many as you can. Then defend and win? Yeah. So I don't... I don't know that I can really recommend a turn 1 Animus here. Although, maybe, right? Could be. Not by Mr. Guy, anyway. Maybe, 307 actually seems pretty convincing, because I think the player 1 Elliot Animus is pretty good here. But, I mean, probably so is player 2 Fastimus? I don't know. It's tough, because what do you do on turn 2? Like, in response to your opponent's Animus. Blast Forge could be okay. But you're just going to be so far behind in getting attackers, and you won't be that much up in drones. An opponent will have like Tarsiers to try to counteract your 2 absorb, basically. Right, Tarsier Vor makes your wall look a little silly. And it's... Excuse me. Then it's a little hard to get into red at all out of this. Like, he managed it with Pixie, but... I don't know. It might just be better to mirror the red. Be up a drone, but down half a turn? Feels pretty bad. But, like, suppose we tried that. I think opponent would probably still do something pretty similar here. Although maybe double Vor when we're not going to be absorbing for 2. Nah, you kind of want a Phage next turn. And building the Vor is useful because we kind of want to get a Phage, and we can't get Phage Rhino. So, like, I don't know, how convincing is this? It's tough to add in that Phage, isn't it? Well, this lets opponent hold back the Vor for free, so maybe we don't get that Rhino. Maybe we try the Phage now. No, we have to build an engineer. Or, well, a husk, I guess. And this doesn't defend the Vor? It doesn't defend the NG? This is very dangerous business for both players. Right? Like, I just think that this is actually not so easy for 307th. It's not looking good for us either. You know, with the Vor turning off and we're losing rhinos on defense here. But this turns off the enemy Vor, and so this defends. Oh man. I think we'd rather do this. Honestly, Vor is just not that good right now. Hold the rhino for a little extra tempo so that we can get a wall. Oh, opponent, didn't threaten to attack with Electrovore in this line. It was kind of hard because they wanted the Husk for granularity, but they needed the Rhino to have enough defense if we had clicked the Rhino, right? Well, no. Because with 3, they don't need the Husk. With 2, they don't need the Rhino. Ah! I was overcounting our attack. We only actually threaten 3, because we have to lose a Vor or a Rhino. This way, opponent actually threatens to attack with everything if we only attack for 2. Pretty scary. Drone is so greedy. I don't think so. And I don't know. I just don't know. I guess we can click this and get a Husk? I'm now regretting, I think, having chosen to keep Rhino instead of Electrovore when I had the chance. I've actually managed to click it twice, and if it were a Vor, I might be able to click it again. But not right away. So I don't know, it's probably fine that I kept the Rhino. But we only have one attacker now. Like, this is not so great. I don't know, I feel like opponent might want to slow down somehow. Like, get some permanent attack going? Well, no, they should get a Vor, right? It's attacking, and that's cool. And then what do you do with the rest of the money? Drone and Immolite seem like reasonable choices. I think Immolite's too aggressive because we have a lot of defensive tempo saved up. And attacking for 3 is going to be kind of cool anyway. No, this is 4. Attacking for 5 is actually kind of cool. Because it means opponent has to husk. To be granular enough, right? Yeah, and now this Rhino is like wishing it had been an Electrovore finally. We'd actually be attacking this turn, threatening to turn off a Vor. But like opponent has 6 income and we have 10. But we're down 4 attack. Yeah, it seems like we're still losing, huh? I don't know, though. It made things very difficult for both players, I feel like, to go red first. And blue first, seems like it just gave 307 so much room. We never got to get anything good, and our only attackers were Immolites and a Steel Splitter. I think that there's just like, I mean, the opening I wanted to make was like turn 2 Animus, right? And I wouldn't be surprised to hear that that's what Mr. Guy wanted to do as well. But that that against a turn 1 Animus, he judged that he needed defense more than he needed attack, like he could out-defend the rush. I'm not so sure that's true. I think that this is just such... There's such good support for the rush and such poor support for building defense that I would try to say, well, the best time to build an Animus was in between turns 1 and 2. And so your turn 1 Animus and my turn 2 Animus will be on roughly equal footing. I don't know if that's true, but I think that like that's an approach that you could take in this set. How you could explain that like a turn 2 Animus is good. Or how I think it might be good anyway. The details of how to play that out, I'm sure my analysis wasn't perfect. And even in that analysis, I seemed to be losing. But it seems more hopeful than what we did here. There were opportunities to apply pressure, kind of cool chances to do things. Whereas here, we didn't really get much done, and we gave opponent room to get their own, eventually, Blast Forge. I think a more aggressive response would have limited the scope for what opponent could really do. Right, he was able to just keep building attackers, and then eventually, when we had enough that he cared, he was able to grab a Forge. There wasn't really a moment to do that in my analysis game. So, I don't know. That's what I would have tried, is respond with an Animus anyway. I hope that was useful to you, Mr. Guy. Thanks for participating in this, by the way, and supporting the, making sure I have replays to go through. I appreciate submissions from all players, even jokes from Punf, although no more thanks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.